Good morning and welcome to this weekly market update from AGM Markets. Today's the 14th of May 2014. What I'm going to do today is go through some technical analysis on Euro dollar, cable, dollar Swiss, Aussie and gold. Just going to review what's been going on in the markets since the last video and give some sort of outlook for the rest of the week. I will not make any trade calls or recommendations in this video. You trade at your own risk. If you could please read our full disclaimer on our website, which is www.agmmarkets.com. That would be appreciated. For any new followers out there, we have 3 moving averages on each of these charts. The red one is a 50 simple, the purple 100 simple, and the gold is a 200 simple moving average. Okay, then let's quickly look at the forex calendar. So today is a Wednesday. Normally do these on a Monday, but I've had been quite busy the last couple of days. So yeah, Monday was very quiet anyway. There was no the only high impact news was out from Australia, which was the NAB business confidence, and that came in at 6 from the previous 4. So yeah, then it was very quiet on Monday. Yesterday there was quite a bit out. So in terms of overnight in China, the industrial production year on year, we had some weak German ZEW economic sentiment, both from the ZEW and the German one, very weak numbers there. We had from Australia the annual budget release yesterday at 1:30. Had retail sales, both came in weaker than expected. We had some overnight sort of New Zealand things as well, so retail sales, etc, etc. Today, in terms of high impact news, so I'm doing this video about 8 o'clock at the minute. From the UK at 9:30 GMT, we've got the claimant count numbers and the unemployment rate. At 10:30, we've got the Bank of England Governor Carney speaking on the inflation report as well. And at 1:30, we have US PPI month on month. And then at 3:30 we have German Bundesbank President Weidmann speaking as well. And then tomorrow, overnight, we've got from New Zealand, we've got the annual budget release. We've got the Bank of Japan Governor Kuroda speaking. In terms of just high impact stuff, at 1:30 you've got weekly jobless claims from the US with CPI and Canadian manufacturing numbers there month on month. Then at 3 o'clock we have Philly Fed Manufacturing Index, and then on Friday we have Fed Chair Yellen speaking, and then at 1:30 we have US building permits, and to finish off the week, 2:55 we've got preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment data. So quite a bit out this week. Nothing major, pretty much a standard week in terms of data, to be honest. But today is definitely an interesting day in terms of UK if you trade cable. With all the sort of claimant count numbers, and then you've got Carney speaking as well. Anyway, let's go to the charts. A lot of these charts I've left the same levels up from last week because the setups haven't changed, but the levels have been very interesting that I drew up last week because they've had the market's tested them and we've seen some interesting reversals. I don't know why I've left that 141 there. I don't know where that was from. Anyway, so this is the Euro Dollar weekly chart. Let's have a brief look at this weekly. And what were we talking about last week? So I spoke about 2 sort of interesting levels, 139 and 139.50s. Reason I drew these up is because you can see 139.50 was a key previous resistance there, and we like to look at the round numbers as well. And we were speaking about this fib move as well, remember. And you can see that we've been saying for the last sort of few weeks, this fib move, so had a lovely uptrend, retracement down to the sort of 50%, 61.8% range. We've rotated higher, and we took out, that was the original fib move, and we took out these highs, but we spiked above, and last week's weekly candle was a big reversal candle. And interestingly, it closed below this trendline support that we spoke about as well. We had a weekly close below that. So you can already see this week we've had a sell-off. I mean, yesterday the German numbers came in weaker, so we had a bit of a sell-off there. And on Monday it just trickled down as well, following on from this weekly candle. But what's interesting, so in terms of this fib, it's not the most purest of fib moves because it sort of formed a double top, so it's not a higher odds play, in my opinion, for buying. But nevertheless, it's still in this sort of this buy zone that was the previous support zone where we came up from. So keep an eye on that. So it's in between sort of 136.72 and 137.30. So one level definitely that I'm keeping out for is 137. So I should change the colour there. I like the round numbers. This margarita colour for some reason. Don't ask why. Just sort of stands out quite well. So yeah, 137 is definitely a key line in the sand. I think for euro going into this week, and especially for today as well. I mean, we've had a brief test of this level. You can see it on the daily chart there. I should zoom out. See it quite clearly on the daily there. Yesterday we came down, tested it, pierced it, and closed above. So it's trying to catch a bit of support already. But yeah, in terms of this weekly now, I mean, I think, well, obviously you've got this smaller fib which could hold. But the next, if we do get some sort of big sell-off over the next sort of few weeks, then this would be the move that I'll personally look at in terms of this weekly perspective. So we'll probably be talking about this for the whole of the year, because it's obviously weekly chart does sort of tend to, these setups do tend to play out for the whole of the year really. So that's another setup to keep an eye out for. But in terms of these next sort of few weeks videos, this is the one to definitely still keep an eye on, in my opinion. I'm going to delete that trendline support off because it's perfect, it's where it's broken at. So yeah, that's it in terms of supports on the weekly. Let's flip it to the daily now. What we're keeping an eye on, that same thing. So the 137, you know, I mean, I'll purposely not going to draw that fib up. I'm just going to keep the 137 because I think that's an interesting level. So that's the main sort of support area really. In terms of sellers coming in terms of fibs as well, that's definitely the fib I'm personally going to be looking at. So that's the fib from the high of May to the low of May. Solid downtrend. If we do get any sort of pop up from this 137, which could happen, and we get up towards this 50%, then that would definitely be an interesting selling opportunity, I think, all depending on the sort of price action there. So I'm certainly going to keep an eye on that. But of course, keep an eye on these moving averages as well, because they've been acting quite well. But yeah, and that's pretty much it in terms of euro. It's the same thing on the 4 hour, that same sort of setup. You can see the 137's been acting really nicely on that as well. So the previous 4 hour candle, there's a nice sort of reversal pattern on there. And we I hope, well, we should get some sort of bounce up. And if you look at it on the 1 hour, same move as well. So that's pretty much it in terms of the setups really. This fib move here, which I think we could get a bounce up. We should see some sort of sell-off. In terms of really short-term players, in terms of fib moves, if you're looking at like 15-minute, this is probably one you can already see that's acting quite nicely in terms of 15-minute aggressive, any sort of aggressive sellers coming in, sort of intraday scalpers. That is one to look at. That is currently in play. You can see we've already had a spike off that 50%, but anyway, yeah, in terms of these weekly videos, that's the move, which hopefully should be of interest. Cable on the weekly, I left these two levels up as similar to euro. So we've got the 169.50s and 170s here. Key resistance from 2009, remember. We've been saying for a while, it has been due a retracement because it's such a strong uptrend. Of course, it can keep on grinding higher. But last week's weekly candle, I think, is very interesting. A nice reversal pattern there. It has got a bit of lower wick on the candle, but still this upper wick is massive. So you can see we pretty much tested that 170s, closed below the 169.50s. And in fact, sorry, if we draw 169 on here as well, we've closed below that. So very interesting sell candle yesterday. You can see this weekly candle have already come up, test this 169. And it's currently below it. Did it get a daily close? Yeah, it closed below it yesterday, last few days actually. So yeah, it looks like it wants to retrace. And obviously in terms of this weekly, the only fib I'm interested in this weekly is this move here. But of course we're a long way away from that. But the reason being is because this 50% coincides with lovely previous support there. And also round number as well at that 159, remember, so it's pretty much bang on that. So if we are going to retrace some sort of healthy retracement over the next sort of few weeks, then now would be the time, surely, I think, because it's all sort of lining up very nicely. Anyway, let's have a look at the daily. So the daily chart, Still keeping those round numbers up there because I think they've been playing out. I mean, the odds are towards the downside, I think, over the next sort of few weeks. So looking at selling opportunities is quite wise, I think. And a fib that I'm keeping an eye out for is this move here. So that's from the high to that low there, and you can see the 50% there comes in at 1.6907, just above the 169 round number. And for the more sort of shorter term aggressive sellers, I would have thought this fib would interest quite a few. You can see we've already had a test there, this 61.8, pretty much to the pip, so we could drop off that as well. But I personally like to look at the bigger sort of swing moves, so there's nothing wrong with that. And in terms of sort of big, I mean, the obvious recent sort of swing low, I'd say, on this 4 hour, if we do get any sort of bigger sell-off, is this sort of move here. But of course, we're still a long way away from that. But the 61.8 coincides with previous support there and previous resistance as well, so could be quite an interesting move. But I personally think it's all about just selling the sort of any sort of bounce here on cable, because I think it's got a long way to go down. So yeah, but I think 169 is definitely the next sort of interesting resistance, because we have previous resistance there as well. You can see around there on the cursor and around here as well. Nice spike there, so should be an interesting week on cable, especially today with 9:30 as well. See what happens there. If we do get weak sort of manufacturing, then we really could start to drop off here on cable. So there's a lot of room. If you look at that week, there's a lot of room towards that downside there in terms of next sort of major key supports. Dollar Swiss on the weekly, we've been speaking about its two levels for quite some time now. It's with the 0.87 and 0.8752 key supports, and you can see last week we had a lovely weekly bullish reversal pattern off of that one, off of that 87 handle, pretty much to the pip, and it looks like it wants to keep on grinding higher now, maybe towards this 50-week moving average, similar to Euro. I mean, we've been speaking about for ages that they've been doing sort of a mirror image sort of chart. So on Euro, we're looking at the fib from the low to the high. So on Dollar Swiss, we're looking at it from the high to the low of the year. And this 50% we have previous resistance at as well. So that comes in at 0.8929s there. And then of course got the other moves here in terms of this weekly, but of course we're still a long way away from that. So weekly, so Dollar Swiss, I think it's got a lot of room to go up. I think the odds are, I think we'll get some sort of move towards this 50-week moving average. So in terms of Dollar Swiss, in terms of daily, in terms of the 4 hours, well, if we do start to get a bit of retrace currently where we are, then that would be a fib move I'll personally be looking at. So that's a fib from the low made to the high, and that's valid on the daily. You can see on the 1 hour there as well. So it's a lovely uptrend. If we do get some sort of retracement, I'll personally be keeping an eye out for that. That 50% comes in at 0.8805, which sort of coincides with the nice round number, the 0.88 handle there. And that's pretty much it, to be honest with you. Well, the other sort of in terms of key resistance, you can see we're sort of hovering around it now. So, well, it's pretty much the 89 handle, 0.89. Keep an eye on that. You can see that's where we're sort of stalling at the minute on this Dollar Swiss. So yeah, the round numbers have been playing out very well. But in terms of fibs, that's the only sort of fib move I'm personally keeping an eye out for in terms of this week. Aussie, I've kept it a clean chart because I think it's good to sort of keep some perspective, because it's been quite a tricky one, but it does look like it wants to keep on grinding higher. And an extra reason why is if you just look at this this monthly chart, it should sort of explain itself here. So you've got two big dips, and this recent dip is it's been front runned at the sort of 50% level here, but it's a textbook uptrend, nice retracement, and it's sort of getting front run at the 50%. But it's a classic sort of retracement, and the odds are for just a rotation towards this upside here. So I think in terms of picking a bias, I think it should always sort of favour the upside on this Aussie, and this, especially over this year. But in terms of, so I mean, yeah, I've just flipped it to this weekly here. We got this nice sort of closes above this 50-week moving average a couple of weeks ago. That gravestone doji, nice sort of reversal pattern. Last week, a sort of solid bullish candle, and this week it just looks like it wants to keep on grinding higher and higher. The next sort of resistance zone which could stall it is this 0.94 level. You can see we're currently testing that at the winner, but we can see we're currently testing that at the minute. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it get a weekly close above that, and then we really should sort of motor home towards that 100-week moving average. I'd have thought. And then the next sort of resistance, in terms of fibs as well, is this 50%. You've got the 0.9621, which sort of coincides with these sort of previous highs around here as well. Remember that spike was from that fib there. So keep an eye out on that as well. But in terms of shorter term stuff, I mean, on the daily chart, it's nothing major of interest. There's no sort of clear sort of fib setups. They haven't really come down and reached the 50%. I think this one was, well, no, even that got front run, and then this move here, personally would have looked at the this sort of low here. Well, I suppose if you take that low there, well, no, even then it hasn't come out and tested it to the pit. But in terms of if we get any sort of retracement, that'll be the low I'll personally be looking at. So depends on where it sort of stalls. It could stall up here maybe, but that's the sort of that'll be the low I take from in terms of fib. So yeah, in terms of Aussie, it's just sort of I personally think it's just all about just buying any sort of interesting dip, but I haven't seen an interesting dip recently. That has been a decent sort of higher to play in terms of sort of short-term buying opportunity. There hasn't been that sort of technical. But yeah, keep an eye on the round numbers. So the 0.94 here, which is currently capping. And then if we get, I mean, I'll personally be looking at sort of 0.9350 as well. See what happens there. And then 0.93 as well. If we get any sort of retracement this week, that's personally how I'm looking at it, because there's been no sort of interesting fibs. Gold, this is the weekly, same setup that we've been speaking about for the last few weeks now. It's trying to get above this 50-week moving average, but it is struggling. And it does have the 1300 there, you can see. 1300 marker. Trying to cap it as well. You see last week's weekly candle closed below the 1300, and it closed below this 50% level as well. So the fib hasn't been that technical, to be honest with you. It's been more, I mean, if I just take off the fib, you can see, so I'm just change the colour of this, make it a little bit brighter. You can see it's all about these two key levels on this weekly. You've got the 1280s we spoke about for the last sort of few weeks, and this 1300 marker. It's just been chopping inside of this for the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the shorter term stuff, well, in terms of the daily chart, it's still about that setup as well. You can see it even clearer there as well. These lovely sort of spikes off this 1280s. Interestingly, it is making higher lows here, so the odds still do favour, I think, a break towards the upside, and it's sort of making this sort of triangular sort of wedge pattern here, and it is starting to get squeezed in between. And normally when it does get squeezed, it breaks either side. Of course it could break towards the downside, but I mean, it all sort of depends on the US data. I think if we get some weak US data, then it really could just break and fly up here. But if we get some strong data, then I'd expect to break it. But still making these high lows here, it's still getting supported at this 1280s. In order for it to get some real momentum towards the upside, I think we definitely need a weekly close above that 1300s and preferably the trend line. But it's pretty self-explanatory, really, if even just looking on that weekly chart, what's going on. If you look at the shorter term time frames, so like the 4 hour, it's just really just about playing around numbers. So you've got the 1280s and 1290s. What have I done there? 1290s key support as well. You can see that there. We had some lovely action there, and that also, I think, that coincided with a nice little fib as well there. So you can pretty much see off that. So a small little fib off the 50% off of 1290s. Nice confluence and a nice little bounce up that we're seeing here. So that's examples how you can play it on the shorter term time frames. Okay, then that's all for today. Hope you found that video useful. If there's any other pairs that you want me to have a look at next week, then feel free to comment under the YouTube channel or send us a tweet to our Twitter feed, which is at AGM Markets. Hope you have a great rest of the week trading, and I'll catch you next week. Thanks for watching.